The Boattail Riviera is certainly one of the most controversial cars in Buick history, and it lasted just 3 model years from 1971 through 1973. In 1974, the Boattail was eliminated and the front end was revised and toned down so that the car was a bit more conventional. In the rear, the car got high-mounted stoplights similar to the 1971 Tornado and a very different rear end with no discernible hint of a boat tail. And the front became much more conventional with very little plan view tapering, i.e. not very pointed of a nose, in part because of the 5-mile-an-hour impact standard in the front that had to be met without increasing the vehicle length by a significant amount. The 1974 Riviera lasted to the 1976 model year before giving way to the 1977 Riviera and 78 Riviera, which are perhaps two of the, shall we say, more forgettable Rivieras, the history of the nameplate. But the reason behind the overall timid styling for the 1977 and 78 Riviera was a bit of a reaction on the part of Buick general managers and the sales team to just how flamboyant and unconventional the 71-3 Boattail was. One person who actively participated in the development of the 74-76 Riviera was none other than Rare Classic Cars, shall we say frequent guest, Wayne Kady. Wayne was transferred to the Buick studio after the 1971 Eldorado was developed, where he received a special assignment from GM Vice President of Design, Bill Mitchell. Let's listen in as Wayne talks about the 1974-76 Riviera development, as well as his proposal for the 77-78 Riviera, and hint, it's much, much different from the final production car. Well, welcome back to Rare Classic Cars. Here again with designer extraordinaire Wayne Kady. You invited me back. I'm really surprised.
I am too.
You are. I didn't think I was going to get another invite, but
you're all right.
I'm all right.
You're
okay. Well, I could never. No designer ever told me while I was at GM I was all right. So.
Well, bean counters come and go, and you're all right.
I'm all right. Well,
you're a car guy. Car guys make a difference.
I've got a few cars, so I guess
I guess you do.
One I don't have, though. I don't have a Buick Riviera, either the Boattail or its successors. And you've got some interesting details about those vehicles, I understand.
So, I do.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I didn't design the Boattail, but I thought it was a very aggressive-looking car. It had a lot of flamboyance to it. And it started out as a narrower car, just like the Eldorado did.
It was an A-body.
Yeah, it was an A-body design, and it was really a beautiful shape. And as the car grew wider, then of course it looked bloated. But I thought the design was still a very, very good design. And it was something that Bill Mitchell was pushing, and the guy that was in charge of that was Jerry Hirschberg. And he was the chief designer for that design. And I think Mitchell had a lot of influence to push that design on Buick, and then Buick didn't really like the concept, and they thought it was maybe too flamboyant, too controversial, and as a result, the sales didn't go off as hoped, and they wanted the design changed. And I had been working on, well, actually, I've been working in the studio right next to where Jerry designed the Boattail Riviera, and I'd finished the 71 Eldorado, and then we were working on a DeVille replacement, and it was just a concept car. It was designed mostly by my assistant, Don Logerquist. And we had the fiberglass model sitting in the studio, and it was a 4-door.
That's this vehicle here, which I can blow up for the viewers, correct?
It's this one right here. That's it. It's a 2-tone car. But it was a very nice looking sedan, or a DeVille. It could have been a DeVille, except it didn't have a fin on it. But Then after finishing that design, then we start working on the what would have ended up being the 75.5 Seville, which came out in 76 Seville, which came out in 75.5.
Sure.
And we were working on the original concepts for that design, and then after we had finished that program, then I get a call from Bill Mitchell's office, and I'm told to come up to his office.
It was a Friday afternoon.
No,
No,
I don't remember what was it. No, I don't remember whether it was a Friday or not. But you know, whenever you get called to Mitchell's office, you know, it's either good news or it's very bad news. So I didn't know what was going on because we were kind of working on a project that really wasn't a solid program yet. The what ended up being a 76 Seville. We had done a lot of artwork so that I can do a little research with the dealers to find out if in fact Cadillac wanted a car of that size to compete with Mercedes. But when I had to go to Mitchell's office, I walk in and Mitchell looks at me and says, "Hey kid," says, "I'm moving you to Buick." And I'm thinking, what'd I do? And
so you thought he didn't like your Seville or something?
No, I don't know what was going on, but you know, kid, I'm moving you over to Buick, and I want you to get the hell out of here and go and fix that problem that they've got in there. And he didn't tell me what the problem was, and it was like, okay, you know, I told you you're being moved, so go. And then, I mean, not exactly that, but you know, that's my feeling of how it happened. And then I
probably more colorful language was used.
Yeah.
Or censored language for the viewers.
Censored, yes. This is a clean
family program.
This is a clean family program, and we're not going to use any of Mitchell's direct quotes. But anyway, Jack Humbert, who became my immediate boss at the time, met me outside of Mitchell's office, and he walked me to the studio, and he was telling me what was going on at the time, that they were behind their releases, and there was some conflict between the studio and Buick, and whenever you fall behind in a release, and it costs overtime money, and a lot of these programs, you know, cost millions of dollars, and it's just money you don't want to waste if you don't have to. They leave, and so I'm working, and I'm asking my studio engineer to release something, and 3 weeks later I'm finding out it's not released. And I said, "Well, why didn't you release it?" And he says, well, your predecessor, you know, would keep changing his mind, and we thought maybe you'd be the same.
So he's held back on your releases.
All your designers are the same. Kind of thing. But anyway, so I mentioned it to my boss, Jack Humbert, and he immediately changed, and he brought me in a studio engineer that he knew from Pontiac. His name was Hank Marwin, and Hank Marwin was a peach of a guy. I was lucky to get him.
And then the first assignment was that sent you there was to get rid of the boat tail, would you say, or?
That's really the first assignment that I had when I went into the studio.
And why did Buick want to get rid of it? What was the perception of the boat tail within Buick and with the dealers at the time, would you say?
I think they thought it was just too controversial, and if the general manager of the division didn't like it, and I heard the general manager at one point tell some dealers at a dealer reveal that he didn't like the boat tail, and it was forced on him, and he was trying to get rid of it. And I know that there was some conflict between the general manager and Bill Mitchell. So the reason that I was probably sent into Buick was to change the back end of that Riviera. And Mitchell had an idea that I should take the design off of that DeVille sedan, a two-tone DeVille sedan that we had done a fiberglass model of.
Right.
and take that rear end and graft it on the back of the Riviera. So all we had to work with was we were able to do a new deck lid, new quarter panels. We had to save the doors. We got the roof off of the, let me see, we shared the roof with the
big B body or something? Or?
No, we took it off the Eldorado and the Tornado. So we shared that roof. And we had a deck lid, and we had some high-level lights that were incorporated that were supposed to give it some pizzazz. And
how do you do that? Just Wayne, go graft the back end on, but you've got to save the doors, you've got to save the roof, you've got to save. That's quite a bit. How do you kind of get the surfacing to blend into that proposal then?
Well, what you do is you get the master clay model in the studio, and then you make sure that the clay is still accurate, and the parts you have to save you just keep. And then the parts that you're able to change. Okay, like for instance, we had the whole front and the doors cut. And then, when I say cut, reshaped in clay and then made sure it was accurate. Mm. And then we had the roof that we're going to have to use, the common roof with the old Tornado and the Eldorado. We had that milled into the clay model as well. So everything that we had to hold was cut into the clay, and then what you have left is what you change.
So you start by milling out those surfaces that are locked.
Yes.
And then you form the rest.
And then you form the rest. So then you have to just splice it in and just feel your way around, and that's how it happens. Of course, you have to maintain the dimensions of the car, but we were able to change the front end a little bit. I'm trying to remember too, the front end had sheet metal compound.
It did.
Front end panel.
Yes.
So we were able to change that a little bit in order to take maybe a little of the plan view out to add some of the bumper, without increasing the length of the car.
So you kind of mill that whole existing surface that's locked, and then you form it around it, and you took some of the plan view out of the hood to try to keep the length of the same with the bumper.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that part of it, but I remember mostly the rear end and how that came about. We got some flack on the rear end, and people badmouthed it, and I really wasn't all that proud of the outcome. I think what we accomplished what we were told to do, but I don't think it enhanced the look of the car. It just made it more ordinary, and I don't think we sold any more. If you go back and look at the sales, it probably never improved it.
I think, the Riviera, even the Boattail compared to the previous generation, wasn't a great seller. It was selling in the low to mid 30,000s.
Okay.
That had the Boattail had a bit of an influence then on the even subsequent generation, the 77 to 78, and its kind of conventional nature a little bit, did it not? Or
well, if you, I always pictured Buick, as a design it had, especially the Riviera, it had some romance to it. It had some flamboyance to it. And if you make it an ordinary car like I did with that 74 Riviera, then how do you get back some of that romance and some of that flamboyance? And this is
enter some romance and flamboyance.
Well, I can refer it to that way. Other people may not look at it the same as I do, but
this was your proposal for what was going to be the 77, 78, correct?
Yes, and that was the first clay model that we did. It was pretty far along, and then Buick salespeople came in, saw it, and they thought it was too flamboyant. I think maybe the drop belt line and the reverse D line and then the stiff roof profile gave them some pause, and then they went back and talked to George Elgis, the general manager of Buick, and then George gives me a call. He says, "Hey, I hear your car that you're working on is pretty controversial." I said, "I don't think so, George." He says, "Well, I want to come down and see it. I'm coming down Saturday morning at 10:30. And I told George, I've got I've got a dental appointment and I can't be there till about 11 o'clock. And he said, okay, so I'll see you there. I'll be there. Well, anyway, when I pull in the garage, the guard at the garage told me, don't go to the studio, go to Mitchell's office. And I thought, uh-oh, what's going on? So when I go into Mitchell's office, and he's saying that he used some flamboyant language to describe George. And he said, he's in your studio right now, and he wants to see what the Eldorado looks like, and he wants to see what the Tornado look like. And don't show it to him. So I said, okay, I won't. You know, it's not my, you know, I can't do that. So I walked back to the studio, and there again, Jack Humbert meets me, and he's telling me that George was in the studio, and he and Bill Mitchell got into a big conflict over the design because Mitchell loved it, and George went along with his salespeople. So when I walk into the studio, George has got he's got a sad look on his face, kind of a sad, angry look, really. And he said, I want to see the Eldorado and I want to see the Tornado. And I said, George, I can't show them to you. I don't run the building. Bill Mitchell does. He says, well, go get him on the phone. So I go to my office, and I'm thinking I just came from his office.
Yeah.
So I'm going into my office, and I'm starting to dial, and all of a sudden the door flies open, and Mitchell comes walking in. And he's got this angry look on his face. And he's looking at George, and George is standing there. They're both looking angry at each other. And George,
just growling at each other like two pit bulls or something.
And George tells Mitchell, I want to see that Tornado. I want to see that Eldorado. Says, okay, come on, damn it. I'll show you those two cars. So we're walking down the hall. While we're walking down the hall, Mitchell's telling, look at you. You don't even know how to dress yourself, and you want to see the other.
You were saying that to the Buick general manager?
He was.
Oh, this is a Saturday morning thing.
Saturday morning. I'm thinking, oh, God, you know, I don't want to get out of this. So anyway,
you're trailing far behind at this point.
No, no. Well, I mean, there's no place for me to go. You know, if I lag behind, then it's going to look even worse. So anyway, we're walking down the hall, and there's Elgis, Mitchell, Humbert, and myself. We're walking in, he shows him the Eldorado, and it's nothing. He comes back, shows him the Tornado, and that's a nothing. They're just a big couple of bricks. And comes back into the studio, and George is telling him, well, I don't like it. I'm not going to buy it. So anyway, Mitchell's looking at him, and God, I'm looking, his fists are doubled up, and I'm thinking, God, this is going to get into a fisticuffs here, and now what I do? So anyway, so George doesn't say anything. And then Mitchell looks at him and says, nobody elects you, not even Kady. And it turns around and walks out.
All because of this car here.
Yeah, I'm looking at the corner of my eye, and I just see Jack Humbert looking for a place to hide. Not literally, but I mean, you know, he's thinking, oh, you know, this is crazy stuff. So anyway, after Mitchell leaves, El just looks at me, and he's got this mean look on his face. He says, is that true what Bill said about you not liking me? And there's no, George. Bill doesn't speak for me. Anyway, that was the end of that design. And
that was the end of your proposal then.
That was the end of my proposal. Not long after that, I ended up in Cadillac again.
So this is the car that got you sent back to Cadillac there, huh?
I think, I don't know.
You were misbehaving. It was too flamboyant there, huh?
Hey, you know, you gotta do what you think is right. And
well, it's certainly, I mean, it would have been, like, to your point, much more romantic and flamboyant than the 77 that came out, which was...
You know, if you look at Buicks going back to the, you know, right after the Second World War, they had a lot of romance to them. You know, they were beautiful cars. You know, the front fender leading off into the rear fender, and then it had some detail on the hood, you know, that separated it from all the other GM cars, and it had a very strong grille presence. It was a beautiful car.
Well, then you robbed a little bit, as to borrow the phrase from Bill Mitchell. It robbed the bank, not the grocery store, but with the Bugatti line.
Yeah, you can say that. Yeah, that was one of Mitchell's comments. He would say, you know, if you're going to rob, you know, rob from a bank, don't rob from a grocery store.
That's right. No Delahaye style sweep spear though on this one.
No. The reason we worked there was to design cars that people wanted to buy. And if the corporation didn't make money on these cars, they didn't buy them in enough volume, then there wouldn't be any need for us. So that was kind of my philosophy, and I'm not that smart a guy, but I think I'm smart enough to know that if you don't, you know, whatever you design doesn't sell, then you're
in trouble.
You're in trouble.
Well, no, I mean, you have to.
Unless you're a good talker.
Or a finance guy.
I don't ever consider, yeah, a finance guy. I never consider myself a good talker.
I never consider. Well, all you do is you should have joined the finance staff. Then you just criticize everything, and then you can sit back and critique it, and you don't have to worry too much.
Yeah, that's probably true. I was never good with numbers. I flunked algebra my first year.
Well, thanks, Wayne, for sharing some of your time. Your first round at Buick. We'll have to talk about your second round at Buick at some point when you came back.
It's probably a little less conflicting.
A little less conflicting. No fisticuffs by that point.
Oh.
No. All right. Well, thanks so much. Thanks so much for watching this interview with Wayne Kady on the Buick Rivieras from 1974 all the way through 78. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as hit the super thanks button, which is the heart-shaped icon with the $sign in it at the bottom right of your video browser. Till next time, check out the video thumbnails at bottom left and right, and thanks again for watching, and take care.